Okay, we are live on this beautiful Thursday, as usual. Florida, sunny, still cool, but we're enjoying it actually. I got used to the cooler days. At first you feel that even if it's 70 degrees, you need to wear a sweater. Now it can be 65 and you're good with bare arms. It's amazing how the body can adjust to that. Anyway, this is Toni Weel for the new people who haven't been here yet and listened for the first time. I have Sara with me from Virtuous Unicorns, my long-term co-host. I know Katie is
Mhm.
online. She is not in the chat yet, and we're actually waiting for Thad to come on and talk about the emotional aspects of detoxing, because there's a lot to talk about. And I remember when I first talked with that everything was still new to me. Dr. Morse, I was already, following Dr. Morse's advice. And but when I talked to him, he was talking about the emotional aspects, and do not forget them, and that they are an important part of your healing. And over the years, everybody I talk to has actually issues with that. So I am, and Ted is really into this, and he can explain it all so well. But I'll wait for him, a few more minutes. I actually relied on him. I haven't prepared well enough to talk an hour about that. I want to go back to last week when we had a little um technical issue with I think I was just talking about Garden of Eden.social, the social platform I set up for us to connect. And all of a sudden I had a black screen and I was still talking. And I'm like, oh no. And my computer crashed. It was completely 100% dead. And so I got back on my phone, and then even 4 hours later I heard I think it was Katie telling me, hey, you're still you're still live streaming. And I couldn't stop it from my phone. So on Saturday, my very, very old laptop, and very beautiful laptop too, touch screen, big screen, and it has, all the bells and whistles. And I was like, well, maybe I need to look into a new laptop. And I saw that a similar laptop as what I have now and what I bought probably 12, 13 years ago is now over $3,000. And I got used that computers got cheaper, not more expensive. So I'm very happy that it's working again, and perfectly, no issues at all. And I can have my 100 browser windows open, which I tend to do. And but it all works. So I'm very happy with that. Sarah is on the phone with us. She's not on the computer. She's not home. She's traveling.
Yep,
And
on the road again.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Computers are crazy expensive nowadays, and you just try to do everything you possibly can to be able to keep your current computer. But I mean, that just seems the way of the future. Like phones are expensive, cars are expensive, everything is nowadays, and I sure hope we can go back to normacy, at least to what we all remember, sometime soon.
Yeah, I wonder if the prices ever go down. When in the Netherlands and they started the European Union, and all of a sudden we went from guilders to euros, and 1 euro was 2.2 guilder. Well, it didn't take long before it was a 1-to-1, and we realized we were actually paying double for stuff. And you would expect, well, the prices will go down again. They never did. They never did. So I don't see that happening here too. But yeah, changes are happening. So we'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
That's for
see
sure.
that Katie, you have an interesting an interesting question about for the past couple of days I have been smelling cigarette smoke, even though there is no cigarette smoke around me. Do you know why this would be? I don't really have a clear answer. I have that with coffee. We can, and my husband smells it too, so it's not just me. We are in the middle of nowhere, no houses anywhere, and it's like, you smell coffee? I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's
Some people say that when you smell smoke, it's spirits, but I know that there is something too with medically on that as well. I would have to look that up, but a lot of people say it's spirits, like you're supposed to like ghost and stuff like that.
yeah, I wonder if it can be that if you smoked in the past, if when you are detoxing, that some of it can associate
That would make
yourself, that
sense.
it comes out.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the part about the emotional stuff coming out during detox, I mean, that's a definite. And I think that also keeps a lot of people from joining or from continuing on. You know, they start dealing with too much coming up at the same time, and it becomes too much for them. And I remember the last time we spoke with Thad had said that the meat in the carnal diet will keep all that suppressed. And that's why a lot of people will turn to that because they think that they feel good on that. When in all reality, it's just really suppressing any of those feelings.
Very, very true. It's Katie just said you've never been a smoker. Well, you may have been around smokers. I don't really have a good answer for that, what it is, what exactly it is. It's something that I would have to look into. And Katie, why don't
Mm-hmm.
you come on the chat?
Yeah, go ahead and pop in.
Yeah, she is it's like yeah, poor Matt. I'm sure he has dealt with my detoxing emotions. It's like I don't think I ever had any detoxing emotions, and so it's I some people say that my hormones are going haywire, and so a lot of changes happen in your body. So yeah, that is possible too, that it affects your hormones, and from there on, you have your emotional results. But for me, it was like I think my the emotional part of my detoxing is more the traumatic things that keep popping up. And it's not being able to stick to what you need to eat 100%. And I wish I was more perfect in that. And it's like I'm 3 weeks perfect, and I seem to have I have to rebel against it, and I eat something I shouldn't eat, and I pay dearly for it, believe me. So I won't do it again for a while. And that is, that is also what we need to, or what we need to work out. Need to is not should, and address it and realize, why are you doing that? And often it goes way, way back. So I think I need to call that and see if I can get him online. So I am going to mute myself, so you girls, you can talk, please. Are you still there?
I'm here and I'm ready to talk.
Okay. Okay, you talk. I'll put myself on mute, and I called that, so see what happens.
Okay, well, I wrote in the chat. I'm so excited to be talking about emotions today because that has just really resonated with me. I don't know if I saw the post yesterday that Toni made saying that Chad would be on and we'd be talking about emotions. So then last night I didn't sleep because emotions were on my mind. And I I think it was last week or the week before, I went and saw the children's movie called Turning Red. And I had never seen the preview for this movie, but it was a Tuesday. And so Tuesdays is $5 movie day. So I go and take advantage of that. Anyways, so I saw the preview and I said something to Sara from Virtuous Unicorns. And I was like, oh my gosh, check this out. And Sarah's like, yeah, I've seen this preview. So I went to the movie and I was just like blown away by it. I thought it was really good. And then later this year, we have another movie coming out. It came out a couple of years ago, Inside Out, and it teaches children about emotions. And then a new one, Inside Out 2, is coming out where they add more emotions because the little girl in the first movie, she's grown up and now she's like a teenager, maybe in middle school. And so now she's experiencing new emotions. And I think that's really important because, all of you know, I love God very much. And I'm learning a lot about how were we created, how he created everything. And in my journey that I'm learning about the fruits of the spirit. And I think it's so funny because in the Our Father, when we say that prayer, we say on earth as it is in heaven. Well, that line right there shows us that we live in a duality type of a environment where, and the reason why it's duality is because you have the physical earth and then you have the spiritual heaven. And so we also have a physical body and we have a soul, which is spirit within us. And so there's two ways to feed. I mean, you have two bodies to feed. You have to feed the soul and you have to feed the physical body. And to feed the soul, God gave us the fruits of the spirit. And that's how we feed our soul, by practicing those things. And then, of course, he gave us fruit for our physical body. Well, so one of the fruits of the spirits is self-control. And then when you think about how it can be our emotions that get the better of us and lead us into hell, or it can lead us into heaven. And I just find this all so very interesting, and it all connects with one another, because even the foods that we eat also lead us into hell and also can lead us into heaven. And so it is our fruits of the physicalness and it's the fruits of the spirit that allow us to rise. But we do need to practice self-control, because that's a fruit of the spirit that was given to us. And we need to be in control of our emotions. Well, in this movie, Turning Red, these women, the movie shows us that women were gifted to be more emotional. And these women, they have to go through some sort of ceremony during the red moon, and they have to decide, are they going to keep these emotions or are they going to give them up? They don't call it emotions. They say, are you going to keep this part of you, this animal instinct of you, or are you going to give it up? And most of the women choose to give it up. And they practice, and I don't know if when they give it up, then they practice absolute self-control, that they almost aren't emotional anymore. But this little girl, she now learns that she has this gift, and she uses it in her best interest. Like she doesn't see it as a downfall. She sees this as a beautiful thing, and she's like, you know what? I'm going to use this to my ability. And maybe she didn't do it quite right, but she found a way to use her gifts so that when that ceremony came, all the women in the circle were like, okay, she's going to let it go and she's going to be like us and everything like that. And they were completely shocked when she chose otherwise. And she said, no, I don't want to let this go. These are a part of me, and I can use them in a good way. And so it was just a beautiful story to teach not only the adults that are taking our children to this movie, but to teach us that we can be in control of our emotions and we don't have to look down on them. We just need to become the master of them. And so I just think that's so beautiful, because even in this detox, like I said in the chat, poor Matt, I mean, he has truly witnessed some of my emotional detox. And thankfully, he loves me unconditionally. And I appreciate that very, very much. But so, anyways, I just find this all very timely to be having these kinds of conversations, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
That is really neat, and I do look forward to seeing that movie as well too, and taking our son to go see that movie. Did see the preview of it, like you said, and as soon as you said that, like everyone else was suppressing that motion or releasing that emotion, then it made me think of even on The Chosen, where it's the turquoise fish swimming against the other fish. It's somewhat. It just takes one person to turn and go the other way to start a revolution, to start a change, for people to see a different way. And that's fantastic that's what is coming out as our new movies too. And do you know if this is going to be on Disney Plus as well, or was that a Pixar movie? I can't remember.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I think it was a Pixar movie. Because
then it will be on Disney Plus. Then the plus is supposed to be the cross now, and so that was like a whole nother thing of Disney changing.
Oh yeah, no, yes, I'm not. Yeah, I don't even know, but yes, it's worth seeing, and it is really interesting. And I hope I didn't ruin it for you.
No, not at all. Not at all. It looks like Thad is on as well too now. Hi, Thad.
Hello, guys. How are we doing today?
We're doing great. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Well, I already introduced you, Thad. You are the ones who is going to talk about the emotional aspects, because I remember, and I don't know if you remember that, but it's probably it's close to 4 years ago that we had, and I was just starting. I was already studying with Dr. Morse, and we had a chat, and you were talking about the emotional part, how important that was to also address that. And so I knew you were the person to talk about this, and I've heard you in other articles write about it. And so yes, please share with us what you can share about how important it is to address it and how to address it.
Okay, I can share some things real shortly at the first to kind of, give people an understanding of how important it is from, all my research and understanding and reading books and hearing, great people talk about the subject and from many different sources. Pretty much the easiest way to explain it from my understanding is, and to jump straight to the punchline, to the mic drop moment, is we are a spirit having a human experience. And it comes down to the spirit has needs that we sometimes overlook and we don't address. And so everything is connected to your nervous system, and everything is energy in motion, emotions. And everything is vibrations of energy. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, they all lead to outcomes. They all lead to cause and effect. And so we have to be always aware of how all of those energies affect our nervous system. And I see it all the time. Sometimes people don't understand what all plays into that, because it goes so deep, on such a deep level, that they don't understand how all of those things can affect, their nervous system, because I was reading, I'll give you one example of a wonderful group of people and wonderful books out there that you can read that was very, very powerful. And it helped me to understand, a deeper aspect of it. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Heart Math Institute out in California. And they're a wonderful group of organization of people that was started by Doc Childress. He was one of the guys that started it back a while back, but he talked about how the heart has intelligence that is connected to the amygdala in the brain, which is the emotional center of the brain, and how the heart has a frequency, that puts out energy that can be gauged 7 to 10 feet away from your body, and it can affect not only your immediate surroundings around where you are, but also those that are around you as well. And he said that the information can travel from your heart to your amygdala faster than you're even aware. And then that can affect the amygdala of the brain, that then can affect your master glands, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and all of your nervous system. And then we've talked about before how the nervous system can be affected from your colon, that can affect the rest of your nervous system. We talked about that with the connection in iridology, how we can see that in iridology, so that's just two examples, right there, or a couple examples right there of how, our emotions and our thoughts and our feelings and how we handle these things, they go so deep and so beyond what a lot of us can comprehend, and one final thing I'll say, and then I'll let you guys reply back, is I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza one time. He's a wonderful man that talks about a lot of these things too, and he's wrote a lot of great books. And he said your personality is made up of your personal view of reality, and how that can always change according to how you view the world. And it can change from moment to moment, from year to year, from decade to decade. And it should change, actually, because we are supposed to be, changing, evolving, growing, learning individuals. It's just we have that young child within that sometimes resists change. It resists wanting to go through those growing periods, those hard, challenging moments, because we don't want it to be hard. We don't want to have to, change up our comfortable routine, our comfort zone that we're in, but at the same time, we have to understand that that's what we come here to do. That's one of the main things we come here to experience, is how to grow and to change and to become better versions of ourselves. And so that's why I find it all very fascinating. I've loved the study of psychology and these deeper parts of who we are, not just the surface layer, or not just, the vehicle that our spirit is traveling around in. That's just what is carrying our spirit so we can experience the world. It's not really truly who we are, and that's even what Dr. Morse has talked about before, about who's the director behind the movie, not just the actor playing the part. Who's the true you, which is the something that's divine, that's eternal, and that will never be destroyed. And so that's kind of, the way that I really talk about it with people and explain it, because I think awareness is so important. The more awareness you have about how deep it goes, then you can start to dive deeper and deeper into the understanding of it all. Yeah.
That when understanding, does that also mean that you can have more control if you are conscious about it?
Oh, most certainly. But here's the part that's the trickiest, is the more you're aware, the harder it is at times to control it, because, and this is what's been so challenging for me, even in the last, 20 years of my journey, even just recent of my life, is you have the ability to have such deeper emotion on such a deep level that you get so easily overwhelmed with just anything, and anything that's, very touching, very wholesome, very, just very moving. It just brings ecstatic levels of joy to the point where it can just make you feel uncontrollably emotional, where feelings of great joy, and then also feelings of great sadness, feelings of great, despair, feelings of of things that are just very intense, just because you can't get to those higher states of positive without the other side of the equation too, because we live here in the land of duality, and so, that's the thing that happens is the more you open yourself up, the more you allow yourself to feel on a deeper level, the more you have to learn how to control it or it will control you, because it's all about having the deeper understanding on how to keep yourself from getting so unstable, from different things that happen in your life. And that just takes some discipline, some confidence, some practice, some observation. That's very important. Like I'll give you one example is I had a lady one time, I was talking to her on the phone and she said, Thad, I've come to the conclusion that I think my nervous system is really sensitive. She said, because, I had some relatives come over to see me that I hadn't seen it for a long time. And I got so excited to see them when they came that I crashed after they left, and I felt so drained and so tired and so fatigued. And I said, well, that makes a lot of sense to me because I read one time where Dr. Jensen, he talked about how the nervous system doesn't know the difference between extreme excitement or extreme fear or sadness. It just knows that those are strong energies. They're the opposite polarities, and that's why Dr. Morse has taught so much about, acidic emotions as well as alkaline emotions, and how that acidic energy can build up in our body as waste, just like acidic foods we eat. And that's why it tells you to be love. That's what I found so ironic when we went to classes, and I imagine it was on your name tag too, Toni, when you went to class, but it was on mine for sure. On the back of it, it said "Be love," and
Yes, it was. Yes.
that's why he's talked so much about that. And that's why all your greats have talked about, that is the one of the greatest energies in the world. But I'm convinced that it is the opposite side of the coin from fear or hate. But, because, they're both kind of opposite polarity energies. But I kind of think of God as love. God is the great existence of it all, the energy of it all, and so that's kind of the way I think about it. But yeah, that's kind of my reply to what you were saying. But go ahead, I'll keep going. I'm not here to dominate conversation. I love especially these kind of conversations for it to be open and back and forth because it's really a powerful, very powerful conversation. And I've heard Dr. Moore say it many times. I've read it many times, and I've said it to people constantly. Is that we're always going to work more on the emotional, mental, and spiritual part of who we are than anything that we are challenged with in the physical. Because the more you work on those higher states of who you are, the more the physical it'll be okay. It'll work itself out, because so much of the physical is weighed down so heavily because of those other areas are in need. Yeah.
Still, I do feel that it is easier to work on the diet because that is clear what you can do and what you shouldn't and should not do, than working on the emotional aspect. Because I get to talk to people who's like, oh yeah, but it is my hormones. Oh, it is my adrenals. And then you come to a point that it's not clear how they can work on it. Because we hear that, I mean, I've heard that throughout my whole life. It's like, even the traumatic things that you experience, it's like you need to work on it. And that is so unclear for people, as in what to do.
Well, Toni, I'll tell you right quick. I'll explain to you one reason why it is. And this is what I've come to understand personally, as well as experienced it with my own observation of others around me, and also working with people over the years. And I imagine you guys have seen this yourself too, is that there comes a time in our life when we're all faced with the things that we've been running away from or avoiding or not wanting to address, which is called our shadow or the shame that we carry deep inside that we don't want to face. We want to deflect. We want to push it away. We want to put it on someone else. We want to, run away from it. And sometimes that's the hardest thing of all is to face that which we know we need to face and to embrace it and to work through it so that you can get to the other side. I've heard so many people say, in order to heal emotional traumas and dramas that are constantly keeping your system in a state of fight or flight, you have to feel it to heal it. That's the exact words I've heard these psychologists and people say, and see, sometimes that's hard for people to go there again because they've been spending their whole life since they were kids when the trauma occurred. They've been spending their whole life running away from it. And some people psychologically are not capable of feeling it because they didn't develop empathy when they were younger. They didn't develop those cognitive, mental, aspects or parts of who we are psychologically and physiologically. That those parts of the brain I was telling you about when we talked about iridology, and they didn't develop that when they were younger, or they had some kind of strong genetic weakness in that area. And that, yes, that's why it's so ironic how all this stuff comes full circle, because that's why Dr. Morse, I remember hearing him say years and years and years ago that him being here in the South of the United States, it was hard for him to talk a lot about the spiritual aspects, of life and about spiritualism, because, we're so conservative and religious, with, Christianity in the South, that it was hard for him to talk a lot about it, back in the day. But he said what he discovered is that he's really trying to get everyone come to their own spiritual awakening. He said, but he was using food as the doorway because he could always get people to, like you said, Toni, he could always get people to do the food because it would help them from a vanity point of view. It would help them from a feeling better point of view. It all these other things that are more on the surface. And then he said the more that they would go into it from that point of view, then they would slowly start to evolve into having that spiritual awakening, that spiritual awareness that's higher than normal, and it would evolve naturally on its own. And if they were destined for that to happen in their life, then it's going to come about, organically. But he said ultimately that's what he wants you to have because he understands that's really the root of it all, because you're going back again to who you truly are, whether we believe in reincarnation or we believe this is the only rodeo that we're here to experience. He said it's still, or all of the greats have said, it still gets to the core of who we are as a energy experiencing life again, and that's what's really important because we're just really trying to remember who we truly are, and once you understand that, then you can ask yourself, what is my purpose? What did I really come here to experience? And see, that's another big thing that I could just keep going on and on is a lot of us, we're not really living our true purpose. And the spirit doesn't really feel truly satisfied and fulfilled and deeply passionate about life if they're not living their purpose they came here to fulfill. Some people, they're just stuck in these jobs and these positions and these things because of financial reasons and just different situations that they get themselves in. And so they end up spending a lot of their life saying, well, my heart really wants me to do this, but I have to do this instead because of money or, other obligations that they're involved in. And that's kind of like not doing what your heart's calling you to do. And you can only imagine the kind of deep sorrow that would cause for people, so that's another aspect of it all too, is that sometimes people aren't able to, they think they're trapped and they can't find a way to really do what really brings them great joy and ecstasy, so but yeah, y'all go again. I was just adding that in there, yeah.
Sara?
Yes.
She's probably just listening.
Yeah, I'm listening and driving, so if you can't hear me well, let me know, please. No, back to the part where you were talking before about having like a better understanding and a better awareness of, that you're also having a spiritual experience along with this too, is that once you have that better awareness, it does become harder as well too, because now you're trying to look at it from two different aspects of it. But at the same exact time, we all still have that ego that'll rise up And,
That's right.
you know, it can be very strong at times. And when we're very distracted by our jobs or all these other tasks, and then that's when the ego can, almost like a snake, they know exactly when to strike. And that's when you can be caught off guard. And then it can lead into a whole kind of like emotional spiraling of, oh, I should have known this. Like this, I was ready for this. I would practice for this. Whatever. And it still got the better of me. And it just becomes a whole entire, it's very hard still, no matter how far along you get. And it can always surprise you too. But even when you get to that, just know that there will be another chance again too, and another practice and another opportunity for you to maybe get better at it and become stronger also in your spiritual stance, to where you can be aware of maybe when this is starting to come up, because this is the kind of stuff that happens to me, I mean, at least on a weekly basis still. And that's why I call it like a snake. It's ready to strike. It knows exactly when to strike, and it knows exactly when I'm at my weakest point. And it seems that it comes every time.
Well, do you understand why, don't you?
Not fully. So if you
It's
have any aspects, yeah, please
It's
do.
because it's always there trying to teach you something. There's always, from every action that we take, every thought again, every word we speak, every action we take, there's always something there we're trying to learn from that experience, and so that's why, like you were just saying, things are, always changing, the ego comes in. Think about it. When you get ego triggered, that's the only reason why you're getting triggered is that is reflection of something that you still need to work on psychologically, because if you look at all of the greats, the people that have gotten up high enough, they've learned so much what their triggers are. They've learned what that is that's there coming up that's still trying to remind us that we need to work on that in that area. And then when we understand, if you look at all the people that have had like a spiritual ego death, as they say, or ego restructuring, it's that they've learned how to control the ego and not let the ego control them, because the ego is really just a tool. And one people say it stands for edge God out, and it's kind of, you have to understand how to have moments where, I said it best one day, and I had a friend, she liked it so much, that's in our community, that she went to class with me and at the level 2, and I met her. She's a wonderful lady. Her name's Vonda Maria. And she heard me say one day, when we had a Clubhouse podcast for a little while where we were doing Monday Dr. Morse talks and stuff. And I said, sometimes you just got to tell your ego to sit down in the corner and to leave you alone, and to let yourself have control over your ego, because your ego is just part of your mind. It's not, again, who you truly are, and it's just about having enough awareness and being able to catch yourself before you let your ego talk for you or speak for you, without you having control over it, and so it just takes, it's kind of like what I heard Eckhart Tolle say one time, who is another great spiritual giant. He said it's kind of like your spirit or your soul is the overseer. It's watching what your body's doing. It's watching what your mind's doing. It's watching all of these things, and it's not really having an opinion. It's just really just observing, and it's always there wanting you to follow your purpose or your main mission on what you came here to do on earth. But it wants to overview what you're doing, and then it just observes. And then when you can have that in the back of who you are is always observing, then you can think slower about what you're saying, every single word you say. And see, that's helped me a lot in my life, being a big talker, because when I was younger, I used to say things that would embarrass me or get me in trouble because I would speak faster than I could even think. And so just having more awareness and being able to just slow yourself down and just really think, now, is this important? Should I say this? Is this really necessary to say this? Is this gonna really be appropriate to say this? Is this gonna cause more harm to this person than help them? Is this really necessary to even say to them? Because is it really gonna make a difference? Is it really gonna help them, or is it just gonna make them more irritated, or is it gonna trigger them? There's just so many incidences that I've learned over the years from experience that has shown me that sometimes silence is better than saying anything at all, and that's taken me a long time to get there, and I've noticed that with a lot of people too in life, and so that's what it really comes back down to. Because look at the greats again. I think it was Socrates that said this. He said, "The more I learned and acquired wisdom, the more I realized I know nothing." Compared to everything there is in the world to know. And it's kind of a humbling moment. The more we think we're wise and all knowing and we have a understanding of this world, we we realize we only know such a small amount of the infinite that there's no way we can kind of boost our ego to that point and think that I can't learn anymore because I know it all. Because I mean, I'm constantly amazed every day working with my parents at our health food store because we're still every day learning about something new, something about some new herbs and how they work in different ways. I've been reading lately, not to get off subject, just I was mentioning one aspect. I've been reading a lot about berries, about the medicinal berries, and like berberine that comes from bayberry, and just how all these things are so amazing, and just there's always so much to learn. So it's a very humbling experience. Life is so many times. But yeah, keep going, guys. I'm enjoying the conversation, even if I was a little tardy.
You mentioned using the food or fruit as a doorway for this, but what a lot of people experience is that when they start detoxing, they get so much more emotional, or when they start actually eating the fruit, they get more emotional. Can you explain how that works in the body?
Oh, most certainly. Because that's I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know about you, Tony, and your experiences, but I see this with people all the time, and I mean all the time. And I even see it a lot talking with people in the Telegram group. And it's just common because it's common human nature is that the more we eat things that are detoxing, like fruits, and especially the astringent fruits, especially the highest vibrational foods we eat. And that's why I tell people, like, your wild picked, foraged herbs and fruits and foods in the wild that are, very vibrational, active because they're fresh, or either fresh foods you've grown yourself, or those strong astringent and detoxifying, fruits. It's what it's doing is it's removing some of the obstructions from the flow, from impeding the flow of energy. And that's even what Dr. Arnold Ehret talked about, with his equation that he come up with. I think it was I can't remember the right at this moment. My brain's a little foggy this morning on about that, but it was something about um, energy equals I can't remember it right now, but it was just pretty much saying when you remove the obstructions, it increases the flow of energy. It increases the flow of experience, or what comes to the surface. And see, that's what you see when you eat those really high vibrational foods, and fruit is the highest vibrational food. It vibrates or brings all of your stuff to the surface. And that's what you have to do to get it to go away, to get it to be detoxed out. It has to come to the surface. So it brings up not only all of the toxins to the surface that's in your body and the level of toxicity, but it also brings up all your old emotions and feelings and traumas and dramas to the surface. And that's what makes it so hard for people and reason why they have to go slow with it. I remember a story of a guy. He said he was, he'd been detoxing and been in our communities for years, and he tried to get his mom to start eating fruit with him. Well, his mom had not eaten any fruit in 5 years. and she just jumped right into it and started eating like, several servings of fruit a day. And then she eventually got to where she tried to do like an all day fruit eating for like only 3 or 4 days. And he said after the fourth day, she was on the floor. She could not even move. She could not even function. Just everything hit her coming to a full stop, with a brick wall, and it was because all of those fruits were starting to break things free so fast that it overwhelmed her system, so much. And I've seen that with a lot of people too. I can even vouch for that for myself, is when you try to go on an all fruit fast, 100% fruit, a lot of people, they can say, well, the first couple weeks, the first couple months were okay. But then the deeper I got into it, I became so sensitive and so emotional and had so many challenging feelings and just being around people and situations that it got to be overwhelming, and that's because what I've discovered is you have to spend more moments of going inward when you really take it to those higher levels. Like you have to spend a lot more time doing meditations where you just close your eyes and you try to stop overthinking and just go inward and practice a lot on your breathing, because the breathing really helps to stabilize the nervous system. And the more you do that, it helps to kind of calm your system down, calm the adrenals down, calm the mind down, calm the emotions down. I remember when I went to Dr. Morse's level 2 class, I had the month before that in September, we had gotten the very first time and only time I've gotten some truly organic seeded Concord grapes, and they came from California. And we got like 5 cases of them, and they were really, really amazing grapes. And I'd been on a grape cleanse, and I'd gotten really, skinny, and I was detoxing really hard before I even went to Dr. Morse's class. And that's why all my videos and I mean all my photographs, look really skinny, and I'm in full detox. And I was even drinking the fruit juice the whole time during the class. And I remember being at the class and talking with all the students there and everyone that, man, I just felt so overwhelmed from all the vibrations of energy. Because I literally, every time Dr. Morse walked past me or was close to me, I could feel the energy coming off of his body, because he'd gotten to that state of awareness where he'd cultivated so much energy inside of his body. That's the only way I could explain it. And I started asking others, and others said that they could feel the same thing. It was like you just felt this buzz of energy when he would come around you. And I know that sounds strange to a lot of people, but that's ultimately what happens. The more energy you cultivate, the more energy you can put out. But I remember at the very end of the class, though, I was so overwhelmed with it all that instead of going to the beach and really processing my emotions, the only thing I could do was go back to what I've always done, which is a lot of times been a very slippery slope and gotten me in trouble, or let me say, made things more challenging, because really, again, it was just a learning lesson again, is that I wanted to go to food to comfort my feelings of energy, of heavy energy. And so I wanted to go to the health food store, and all I wanted was just some guacamole, some salsa, and some cucumber slices, to eat some salsa and guacamole. And that was the first I'd had of any of that stuff, in probably a couple months from doing all the grapes and everything. And when I remembered when I sat down and ate it, it wasn't as enjoyable as I expected or I wanted it to be, because it didn't really take care of the emotions like I wanted it to. I just ended up feeling kind of heavy from the food because it was heavy on my system compared to all the grapes. And then in that moment, I realized that Thad, you didn't listen to your intuition. Your intuition was telling you what you needed to do is you needed to go sit down on the beach and ground yourself and let all those emotions, process and come out into the earth, and then let that grounding help to wash away, and then even get into the ocean too. Even though it was October, I still could at least got in there and got a dip, and let that water wash away a lot of that heaviness too. But I went back to my emotional comforting thing that had been that way since, childhood. Instead of doing the thing that my spirit was calling me to do, I did what my mind and my body was wanting me to do, because what it was used to doing, and so that was a great learning lesson for me, because it's very, very easy to be able to notice that the more experience you have with it. So really what it comes back down to with this whole conversation, from what I've noticed and talking with others too, is that you just have to get in there with life and just keep playing around with it, and then you'll learn as you go, and you'll keep going to different layers and layers of understanding, and it's really quite fascinating and exciting. And because it's just so much you can learn from all of these things. You just have to have an open mind to it. You have to open up your heart. You have to not be afraid. That's the biggest thing, is just being brave. So brave. It takes a very strong and brave individual to go through some of these things, because we all have some things we can be overwhelmed by. We just have to be very, very patient, very loving towards ourselves and others, and just understand that, these things are happening for us, not against us. So much of life we feel like is punishing us, or God, or, the divine is punishing us, when really, no, he's trying to help you. Everything's trying to work out for your betterment. It's just hard for us to see it that way sometimes, But go ahead. Again, I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Well,
Oh,
I
we
was gonna.
I just start ranting, kind of like, like Dr. Morse and other people I listen to too. They'll get all these rants, and it takes a little. We're long-winded, Yeah,
Well, we're all here to learn from each other, and
yeah,
what I love to hear, and like what you were saying before is, I really believe in the words of what Charlie teaches, that understand, understand, and overstand, and
yeah.
we're always on a level of understanding. We never understand anyone, and I don't know if any of us will ever make it to overstanding somebody. So we're always in a constant state of understanding and learning and being on the same level as each other, but there's a lot of times when I feel like, you do have to remove yourself and you start becoming so sensitive over everything, and they can be just noises, people's energies, too much just activity in the matrix. And I've always had this like fear of, if I remove myself from it, and you go like how you see like the Buddhist monks and stuff, they go to temple, and at temple they live there, they don't own anything, and there they can get in touch with their emotions, they can focus, they can do all this stuff. And I've always been afraid that if I ever removed myself completely from society like that, would I ever be able to return to society? And so I've always tried to see if I could learn to master being in the matrix, in society, dealing with everything within it, but still trying to find that peace and that calm. And then that's when you're in the mix of it all. And then that's always when that ego will still strike at me. And it's when you are in an overwhelmed state. And the overwhelming state is just being in the matrix alone is overwhelming, especially when you're getting into like the deeper detoxes and more emotions and more feelings are starting to come out.
Yes, all that's very, very powerful. And some things you said that triggered again, or it brought to my mind a very powerful thing to remind everyone that's listening. And I always love to talk about, because it's reminding myself too, is that a lot of great people I've heard say that we have to not have any fear as much as possible. Anything that brings up fear is just a trigger of something that's holding you back from being able to surrender in that moment and let go. You have to truly keep realizing that, there is really nothing to fear at all, not even the fear of death. But see, that's what it all comes back to, is the only reason why we have fear about anything is it all goes back to two reasons. The core of it all is the fear of death, but the before the fear of death is the fear of not having a fulfilled life. But everything goes back to the fear of death, because that's the foundation of all fears. But the more you live a life that you have zero fear because you understand everything's happening divinely, then you understand everything's playing out exactly the way it needs to be. And you can kind of get this understanding by looking at hindsight. Once you are in the next now and the future, and you can look back at your past, and you can say, well, man, that's very interesting how that had a tendency to work out just the way it did. That I really didn't have to be afraid. I really didn't have to be scared. That it just ended up working out so serendipitously. It worked out so the way that it needed to work out, whether it was a negative experience or a positive experience. It still happened the way it needed to happen, and when you see that, it's so much of the times we can let go of those fears, and we don't have to feel panicky. We don't have to feel, doubtful. We don't have to question ourselves. Because remember, anytime the psychological hack that is really important is anytime you say in your mind, I can't do that, or I don't know if I can do that, or if I'm limited to doing that, you take away all possibility of even being able to do it at all. Sometimes we have to literally do a psychological hack, which is psych the mind out by telling ourselves enough time that you can do it, even if at first you don't know if it's really something you're ever going to be able to achieve. Because you have to get your state of mind and being and spirit and everything, believing in what you're going for. And I see that so much with even people trying to change the diet, or even taking herbs. If they don't fully believe that it's going to help them, because they don't fully believe in herbs, they don't believe in them like they do medicine, the way they were raised up all their life believing in medicine because of the propaganda. So they're not going to help you as much if you don't believe that they're going to help you. And that's again why we have to just keep looking at the bigger picture. But yeah, you're very right. We can have doubt creep in. We can have all those feelings of fear, and we can get stuck in, like you said, in the matrix, and then we can let the world's issues that's going on affect our own personal issues. And that's another thing that's overwhelmed me at times in the last 2 years that I've been working through this challenging time. Is I've felt so sad for the state of the world, because I just wish we all could keep becoming better people in this world and live all in harmony and peace and joy and happiness. But I realized, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, that that's imp that's impossible, Thad, for some people, because they never have that inside of them to begin with. So how can you expect everyone to be loving and kind and respectful and empathetic and all these feelings of who you are when you can't understand what it's like to not have that, because you have that? And then see, on the other side, they can't understand what it's like to have that because they don't have that. So you're always going to have those two sides, and that's what we see really playing out right now in the world. And we truly are in a spiritual warfare. That's what's really going on in the world right now, because everything's coming to the light. Everything's more and more lights being shined in the dark areas. So we're revealing how evil things can really get. But on the other flip side, we're seeing how things can be so much more amazing than we've ever experienced before too, because again, there's both sides there, and so that's what's kind of overwhelmed me at times too, because I'm a really strong, empathic, feeling individual, and I even see that with all the great people that are very compassionate and emotional and empathetic and stuff, and like even Dr. Morse. Anybody that can get that upset when he reads somebody's testimonial of how they've been through something very hard to go through, or they've been hurt, or they've been wounded by the medical association, or any of those times where he gets so upset. And that's a very empathic feeling person, that's very compassionate and very loving, and stuff. And that's that side of the coin. And then there's some people that they don't have that. So when they don't have that, they have a much higher tendency to go to the dark side, as they say, and to go to the point where they don't care if they treat people bad. They don't care if they do evil things, because why should they care if they don't have the ability to love or the ability to have empathy? So that's why we have people that can do things that we're like, how could they be that evil? How could they do something like that? And it's because that reason. But yeah, go ahead. I love this conversation. I wish we could talk about this stuff for hours. I mean, I'm talking about we
Well,
need
the
to have
key
a part two, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. the key word that you said for me as soon as you said it, and I already knew it because I preach it all the time, is surrender. I mean, you just
Yeah.
literally have to cast your net to the right and just give it all up. And, you know, who cares if you can't, if I feel that I can't return back to what I consider normal at this time? Maybe I'm just not supposed to be in all that mix or something like that. So you just truly have to surrender and just you know, trust and have your
Yeah.
strong faith and just go with it.
Right quick, and then we'll let Tony chime in. I just wanted to tell you triggered something for everyone that's listening. And if you, Sarah, and Tony hasn't heard of this fella that I'm fixing to tell you about, and his book that I was going to tell you about, you ought to read it sometime. It was amazing. It's Michael A. Singer. He wrote a book called Living Untethered, Beyond the Human Predicament. And he's amazing. He talks about surrender and letting go and how important it is to just surrender and let go. You know, I mean, it was really amazing book, and it's his newest version is really easy to read, and it's not real long book. It's only like 200 pages, but it was really powerful. Very, 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 very online with what we're talking about today. You know.
That's
Are you
great.
are you there, Tony?
I was like,
Tony's
yeah,
just listening for a change.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry. What exactly was the name, Michael? And then?
Oh, Michael A. Singer. Michael
Okay.
Singer, and it was called Living Untethered. Yeah, beyond the human predicament. Yeah, that was a good one. And then also there's another great psychologist out there that a lot of people in the spiritual community have heard about called David R. Hawkins, and it's called Letting Go. That was a wonderful book about letting go too. And I listen to the audiobook of these things because, like, like what Sarah's doing, I really don't get as. I mean, I still enjoy music, but I've heard so much of the music out there that's good to listen to already that I like to listen to audiobooks a lot of times when I'm traveling places, you know, because I find that's the easiest way sometimes to go through books because you go through the book so much faster. You know,
Absolutely.
you just have to be able to focus, you know, because if you start to daydream or not pay attention to what he's saying, you have to keep rewinding it, you know.
Yeah, but it's better to rewind than not be paying attention.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That we had a few questions. Would you
Okay.
like to answer them?
Yeah, let me bring it up so I can see them on
Well, it was
my side.
actually before you got on. Katie had
Oh, okay.
and I didn't have an answer for her. Katie said, for the past couple of days, I have been smelling cigarette smoke, even though there is no cigarette smoke around me. Do you know why this would be?
Oh, most certainly. Well, let me say, when I say
Smoker
most
either. It
certainly,
never has been.
what now? What did you say, Sarah?
Katie has never been a smoker either. So that
Yeah. Okay.
too.
Well, what brings first that comes to my mind that makes me say that I think I know what it possibly could be is from what I've heard other people say when that happens, is it could be it triggered something inside of her that brought up an old emotion or feeling that was connected to an experience she had when she was a young baby, or even possibly when she was in her mother's womb that her mother experienced. You know, it's something definitely energetically connected to her that when she was going through some deeper layers, that it brought up that sensory experience. That's the easiest way I can explain it, because that's why even some people will think they're hearing stuff, they'll think they're seeing stuff, they'll think they're smelling stuff that's strange, or they'll have different things that smell certain way, but it really in their mind it's triggering a smell or a memory from their past, you know. And it's all because it's tied in with the psychological again, you know, because our senses are very tied in with our psychological being of who we are. You know, and that's the easiest way I can explain it, because I've heard a lot of psychologists talk about that phenomenon, that when you start peeling back the psychological deepness of who you are and those stuck traumas and emotions and feelings that have been there since you were before, from your youth, before you were even consciously aware. Like we get to, it takes some of us were consciously aware and we have memories that go back to when we're 2 and stuff, but most of us, we don't remember back that far, so we have that dark period, or that period of our life where we don't remember how some of those experiences affected us. Like, I'll give you an example. I was searching for some of the reasons on why I can be overly empathic at times. And it was psychologically, people were saying it's because you must have had something that happened in your life where you felt abandoned. And I was like, well, how could that be? Because I have had such an amazing family that I don't understand why I would ever feel abandoned. But then I remembered a story my mom told me that my brain had blocked out from trauma that I forgot about until she reminded me about it when I was, older. Is that she said, Thad, the very first time I had to take you to daycare, when you were 3 years old, you were standing at the fence and you were crying because you didn't want me to leave. And that you just didn't want me to leave, because, I've always been so attached to my family because they've always been so good to me, and it's been very hard being able to even let them go. It's been very hard even coming to terms with the fact that one day, my parents are not going to be here anymore, and just being able to let go of that, and and that was when I realized. I was like, well, no wonder that was very traumatic to me, because I still remember to this day. I can still hear, I can still visually see the trauma I had from that daycare, because it was in an old creepy building, and they had an old creepy car out back that we played in when it was recess time. And I remember they had some creepy lights that when we were trying to have nap time, looking up at the ceiling, they were just creepy and I couldn't even go to sleep. And see, I still have that memory in my mind. And I think, well, why is it that that's one of your earliest memories you think you can still recall? And I think it was because it was traumatic. That was the reason why it impacted me, or imprinted on me so strongly. But the last thing I was going to mention, and I'll let y'all go again, is that I remember either it was Michael Singer or some people, they were saying that, remember, the Buddhist people have a saying that Buddha supposedly said. He said, attachments lead to suffering, and attachments to desired outcomes. And I hear that so much with people. They get so stuck in their mind, they get so stuck in their feelings that life has to turn out a certain way, that they get attached to that desired outcome, and they're not okay when things don't work out the way they wanted it to, because they don't realize that things are happening for you, not against you, and the same thing with even being in relationships. Sometimes we fight so strongly to be in a relationship with someone when we're not supposed to be in a relationship with them. They were only supposed to be there for a short period of time in our life to teach us something. That wasn't who we're supposed to be with forever. It's just we get so attached to it that sometimes we can't let go of what is not really good for us, and so that's what I wanted to share with any of their listeners, if anyone's having challenges with letting go of things. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some light bulbs going on, what you said about, traumas in how you are later on. Interesting. I'm not going into that right now. I have another question. Since changing my diet and I have lost weight and now I have some extra skin in my neck area that makes me look old, do you know if this will tighten up?
Oh yeah, there is a possibility that can tighten up, but one of the biggest things we have to do, especially, and this is what I've learned over the years of working on the physical, with people, and seeing experiences of even people in my parents' health food store, is it all goes back to how well you can detox your skin and your liver, and of course helping all the body holistically. But the skin and the liver have the big connection with its functionability, and the colon, of course, like we've talked about before, and the lymphatic system. They're all tied together. But the collagen. It's the collagen production that sometimes diminishes because the body gets so used to, when we're younger, because so many of us in the world, such a high percentage of humans in this world started off, on the animal products and getting a lot of that collagen that way, instead of our bodies learning how to naturally produce enough of it on our own. So when we shift over to only plants, then sometimes it's hard for our bodies to produce enough because they're relying so much on getting it from an animal-based source. And then also, plus we don't have proper absorption because we have malabsorption. So sometimes we're not absorbing enough of the nutrients from the plants to be able to produce enough, because you have to have a lot of other cofactors to produce enough collagen in the skin. So that's also another factor, because the skin it can regrow. I mean, it can recover and repair and tighten up and all those things if it's possible. But also we have to look at, has the skin been, stretched? Has it been torn from stretch marks deep down through all the 5 layers of skin? There's just different things you have to look at in these areas where we're talking about it. But at the end of the day, remind yourself, and I especially speak to all you, beautiful ladies out there, is that remind yourself daily that, it is important for our enjoyment of the human body to keep it looking as good as we can. But don't get hung up on feeling that you don't have any worthiness if you don't look your best. Because remember, true beauty comes from within. The most beautiful you can ever be is the more your spirit shines like a beautiful diamond that you are, and you just have to believe in yourself enough, and because you'll start to glow from within, that people won't even look at your little flaws that you have. And the irony is that you will look more genuine the more that you let your flaws be observable to others, because that's really what makes us so beautiful, is our imperfections. Because if we look polished and imperfect, then we don't look genuine, because nothing is polished perfection. That's an illusion that society has created, to keep us chasing perfection, and when really, ironically, we are perfectly imperfect, and that makes up the uniqueness of who we are, So, and we get so hung up on vanity, and we beat ourselves up so much for the way that we look and the way that we feel, and I see it all the time in people that come in the store, and especially women, because you feel like so much of your value is wrapped around how you look, because so many of you growing up, you thought that's all the value that you have, being a woman, when really, no, truly your morals, your character, your beliefs, your ways of communicating with people, those are so much more valuable than just our appearance and how we look, because that's going to last you your whole life. Looks are not going to last us forever, because the body's going to wear out and it's going to break down, and we have to embrace all those stages. That's why I understand, but I find it sad how, as we get older, we don't want to allow our bodies to look beautiful in the stage of age that we are, and that's why I'll see people even in my parents' health food store that are 80 years old and they're still dyeing their hair, and because they don't want to be gray, when it's like, well, gray, that's almost like a badge of honor. You made it to be that age and you lived to be that age. You should be proud of your gray hair, even though technically, though, if we, and this is a deep subject we can talk about forever too, is gray hair is just damaged hair, because they say if you truly are able to keep your DNA and everything strong enough, you shouldn't have as much gray hair as standard, humans. But also traumas and dramas and hardships again too can easier make your hair go gray too, but there's lots of different cultures and different people throughout the world that have kept their hair from turning as gray, in their older age, from helping keep their DNA stronger. That's why there's actually even a wonderful herb called Hoshu Wu or Foti, that it helps repair DNA damage so well that there's been lots of cultures, especially the Chinese, where the herb is grown, that have old wise tales that go back centuries into their culture of how it reverses gray hair, because it repairs the DNA of the body so well. So there's a lot of things like that. It just shows the depth, the deepness and the depth of our human experience. But yeah, go ahead. I love this. You know, I could be talking with you guys all day.
This is actually interesting because at my age, I still have my original hair color. I don't.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I have some gray hairs, but it's not overall. It's just the natural color that I always had. It's a little darker, but definitely not gray. Well, my daughter was gray before 30, so was my mom, so was my sister, and even my husband. He still has blonde hair. He has some gray hairs in his beard, but you know, and we are considered old people.
Yeah, no, I understand, but at the same time, age is just a number, you know, because think about it.
I
Some
know,
people,
but
you
that's
know,
why I like to say it's like I'm forever 38. So I'll
well,
stick with that.
I remember my great grandmother, my mom's mom. She was 94 years old, and she every time we'd ask her how old she was, she'd say, "Sweet 16, ask me again, and I'll tell you the same." You know,
Yeah,
and that's kind of it's not bad to kind of think that way of yourself because again, it goes back to you are what you think of yourself because thoughts are power, you know, and that's why they literally say, you know, you become what you put out. That's a
right.
universal law that will never be able to be disputed. What you put out in the world, it comes back to you, and it comes back always stronger. So, you know, and that's why there was a wonderful lady. Here's another great author you should go look up. She has some wonderful YouTube videos. Well, it's not actually her, it's just her recordings, you know, from a lady from the 30s called Florence Nightingale. And she talked about your words are your wand that creates the reality you experience. And she talked about how she was a sage or a natural healer to help people learn how to reword their words. And how she showed many different cases where people come to her and she told them things to start repeating and saying daily. And it totally changed their life and the things that they experienced because they manifested in a way things to happen in their life by continuing to talk it into existence. You know, and I also say the same thing about your thoughts because the thoughts come first and then the speaking comes next and then the actions come after those two, you know. So, yeah, but
Exactly.
keep
We
it.
have one more question,
Okay. Okay.
and that is from Anna Marie. Can heal alti help with a deep detox?
Say it again. I didn't understand. I wasn't following you.
Can heal alti help
Oh,
with a deep detox?
oh yeah, I mean, HLRT is exactly the way Dr. Morse discovered that formula, how it would help the body, is it kind of just helped the body to detox in many of our different areas of elimination. And he discovered it because he first created that formula to help you ladies with douching. You know, that was originally when he first created the HLRT formula, and then he discovered as people were drinking it as well that it was helping them. And sometimes people that couldn't afford a lot of the herbal formulas, they would just use that, you know, just to drink that some, you know, and that's why, and Tony will probably vouch for this too. I've heard him say before, if you can't really afford anything, just at least get you some Hill All tea and drink that while you're doing the fruits, you know, and because that's at least a good bare minimum, you know, as they say, you know, but yeah, it can definitely help, you know, because there's a lot of great herbs out there. I really love the botanicals, and there's a tea that we talk about in my parents' health food store a lot, and it's called Essiac tea,
Yeah,
and it is four basic herbs that are very powerful. You know, burdock root, turkey rhubarb, let's see, slippery elm, and I can't remember the fourth one at the moment. But those are the four traditional herbs that the lady in the 30s, her name was Cassia, from the Canada, and she got the recipe from the Ojibwawan Indians, and they had been using it for a long time to keep their culture of Indians from getting cancer. And she started making the formula and giving it to people, and she had a clinic until the Canadian government shut her down because she was curing so many people, you know, or excuse me, I can't say that word. She was eliminating that condition from people's body by just giving them those herbs, and those are still some of the main herbs that we sell in my parents' health food store to help people with that, so that's just one example of how some of these teas we can do, are very powerful. We just have to use the right herbs for the right conditions that we need help with, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was the last question, and we are at an hour and 20 minutes. So we're going to,
fantastic show.
yeah, we're going to end this podcast, and we will be back next Thursday. I don't know who will be on. I will connect with you again, Thad, for another one, and have you back on, and for whatever topic we can come up with.
Yeah, well, I definitely think we ought to talk about this again sometime. We can maybe make a post about it in our communities and ask people to give us some questions ahead of time of some of their most challenging emotional things that they're going through, and that we can keep, because what I find so amazing, and this is my closing part, is it when we use real world examples in a serendipitous way, there's always somebody listening that needs to hear what we're going to talk about, and they just happen to tune in that day because something told them I need to listen to this today. And that's just the way things happen serendipitously, and it's really amazing, because you never know when, again, you can say something that can help someone in that moment of the now that they need to hear. So that's why I really love talking about it with people, because we can't all come together and meet together and have a sit down conversation. So it's good that we have this ability where we can do it over the internet, and that's still very powerful, and it still reaches people that need to hear the stuff. So that's why I think that would be even more useful and helpful for people, if we could just maybe make a post sometime, especially in the fans group, Toni, and just asking people to give us some questions, that some of the things they've just been really challenged with, and then we can revisit this topic again, because one thing I would like to talk about again when we have it is how things are more challenging in the wintertime, because the cold is alkaline weather. And the cold, ironically, let me say this part because it's very important when I bring it up, and then it will just kind of be a little preview for a future conversation, is that the more you embrace the cold instead of trying to run away from the cold and back to the warmth, it will bring up those emotions you need to work on because of the alkaline weather. And so it's kind of ironic. That's why the cold therapy with ice baths and all those things that people are popular with today, that's helping them with their emotional stability as well, because it's helping them to go into those emotions easier, because you have to control your breath again, because what happens when you're nervous? You breathe shallow. You're not breathing deep enough. And Dr. Morse has talked about that many times too. You need to have full diaphragm breathing, where you breathe all the way to the bottom of your lungs. And he said, look at a baby. That's what a baby does. They barely breathe, before they're even aware of what's going on around them. But then once they go off to school and they start having awareness, then they start breathing shallow like a lot of us adults. So see, that's what the cold again helps us to do, is to breathe into those emotions. But that's what I'll leave it as a preview, because there's so much more we could talk about with this subject. And like I said, I can't stop.
Okay, well, why don't we do that then for next week, and we start,
Okay.
you have your group where you can post it,
Okay.
and you can actually post it also and ask the questions in
Okay. I'll do that too.
yeah, in the fans group. So
Yeah,
let's do that for next week.
because I think we ought to do that again, at least while it's still cold weather for most
Yeah.
of us, and then that way it'll be another topic that we can talk about while it's cold. And then of course, we can go into other topics too. I appreciate you reaching out to me, Toni, and again, serendipitously asking me to join you sometimes, because it just works out to be such great timing. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you for being here again and sharing all your notes with us. I love it. I always learn something, so that's good.
Yeah, well,
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm very honored and very humbled and very appreciative because I just enjoy talking with people. You know, I'm not going to dare claim that I know it all. I just love to share the stuff that I've learned, you know. Yeah,
We are forever students.
that's right. And we all have
Yes.
something, we all have some value to share. Don't ever feel like just because you don't have enough experience, you don't have something that you can share with others that can help them, you know.
That's what I always say. It doesn't matter how big of your piece of the puzzle is, we all have a part to play
That's
to
right.
make the
That's
whole
right.
picture. And yes, and I think one more thing, I think the reason we don't script these shows, Toni, is because we let it just flow as it needs to flow, as what needs to happen that day. And that's how we've always structured these shows. We don't have scripts. We don't even know what we're talking about until the day of, usually. Sometimes, Toni has something, at least a topic, but we just flow with it. And whatever comes out that day is what God needs us to talk about that day.
Well,
And that's how we go with it.
ironically, that's really the best way to always be
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
even Dr. Morse, that his staff and all those ladies around him in the clinic, even his partner, longtime partner, they've always wanted to kind of follow an outline and stuff. But I remember him talking several times, you know, and especially at class when I went to classes, that he's like, that just doesn't feel comfortable to me at
Mm-mm.
times. You know, I have to just get up there and just start talking and letting it flow
Yep.
organically, you know, because it's kind of like, you know, you just start channeling that divine energy that's coming out of your being because you're connected to God. And so
100%.
then it flows like it needs to flow, you know, and it's just again serendipitous, you know. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Thad. Thank you, Toni, as always. And I look
Yeah,
forward to
thank you
the show
guys.
next week.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sarah, for being here again. Love to you all. And yes, a good reminder was it that what you said, what on the back of our cards at the Dr. Morse classes, be love. And that was, I forgot about that one. Yeah, I
That's
like
great.
that. Be love.
Yeah,
Thank you
sometimes
all. And sorry, chat.
no, I was just going to say sometimes the most simplistic are the most powerful.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, much
Be
love to you
love and
both and everyone listening.
yeah, and be the light. Thanks for everyone who listened, and much love. Until the next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.